Stephanie contacted me a couple of months ago to come and give a presentation about the early temple. She knew that I was there with Moses when we set the cornerstone. We came up from Miami, an urban area, and let me tell you why I had to come here. When I got out of school, a civil engineering degree with the University of Florida, signed up with the state road department for their 30-month professional engineer training program, most of which was spent in the Miami area. But of the program, there was a mandatory 3-month residency in Tallahassee to get familiarized with the highway administration, since this was the headquarters here. So we came up from Miami. Miami, by the way, at the time had a population general area of about 1 million. We came to Tallahassee. The population had not reached 50,000 yet. We saw it as a pleasant backwater town, and like Marcia said, for 3 months I can go anywhere. Well, one of the first things we did was we found Temple Israel. Let me show you the temple picture, if I got enough cord here. We've had this in our house for probably 20 years or so. Temple Israel was a beautiful brick building with 4 columns out in the front. It was located 1 block south of Westcott. Inside the front door, there was a vestibule with restrooms on the left and right, and then into a small social hall with a kitchen and the sanctuary, which was on a slope downward towards the bema, and the bema was raised up several steps. We came from conservative temples in Miami, where there was a low-key rabbi, there was a Jewish cantor, a Jewish choir, and absolutely no music. When we came to the services here in the temple, it was quite a cultural shock. Rabbi Granison really produced loud voices. We commented, this must be a Baptist church. There was no Jewish cantor, there was no Jewish choir, but there was a lovely singer from FSU music department, Herman Gunter, and he sang the music at the temple. Definitely not Jewish, but a beautiful rendition. We also had an excellent accompanist on the. You ready for this? On the organ. We knew we were not a conservative temple at that time. We got over the shock of the change in religious services, and fell in love with a Reformed temple, fell in love with Tallahassee. What had been only expected to be a 3-month time here in Tallahassee turned into 67 years. When we joined the temple, Marcia and I believe we were the youngest members. And now, I haven't checked for sure, but I think we're pretty close. We're probably the oldest members, both in terms of age and in longevity of membership. In 1971, Marcia became the temple secretary. She worked at that position for 12 years. It was part-time, although it was far more than part-time. And she was the only employee of the temple besides the rabbi. She took care of everything except the watering the plants. The rabbi watered all the plants. I might add that the work that she did in those days has now been taken over by 3 full-time employees. So it was quite a bit of work that she did. The temple membership at that time was 60 families and included members from Perry, Quincy, Thomasville, Bainbridge, Chattahoochee. We covered the whole Big Bend area. The temple was obviously growing rather rapidly, and we needed, obviously we're going to need new facilities, particularly for the Sunday school. At the time, the Sunday school classes were held in the old building. One class met in the entry hall, one met in the kitchen, another 3 classes met in the social hall, and I think 2 met in the sanctuary, and then another one, the confirmation class, met at the rabbi's house. It was obvious that we had run out of room not only for the temple members, but for the students in the Sunday school as well. So the temple decided they needed to start with a new Sunday school. And fortunately, Al Block donated this property to Temple Israel, and they began a construction project for the Sunday school. And by the way, it's still here. It's been absorbed by the overall temple. Right outside that area there by the vestibule, that's where the principal's office was. All the rooms down the side where we have the chapel and the meeting room, that was part of the Sunday school. Continuing back on this side all the way to the end, which was an auditorium, and we got along. I think I taught Sunday school class for about 7 years. Although we needed a new temple as well, we just didn't have the money that would be necessary to pay for the down payment for a new temple. And the only way to get a down payment for the new temple was to sell the old Jewish temple. But we discovered there weren't too many people that wanted to buy an old Jewish temple. Fortunately, an angel came on the scene from FSU, and they submitted to us an unrequested and unsolicited offer to buy the property, and we gladly sold it. I think in those days money was rather dear, and I think they got $75,000 for that building, which would be, of course, considerably more today. The property that was used by the FSU is where the Turnbull Center is. I think our property was probably the parking lot now. So we had the $75,000 for a new temple, and let's see about building one. We put out proposals for several architects and selected the best proposal, and it was one submitted by Chuck Benda. Chuck did a magnificent job. He drew up this 6-sided temple, gorgeous. The only thing wrong with it was too expensive. In order to get the money to build the temple, to pay for the mortgage, we hired a big city fundraising organization, and they swept into Tallahassee with a really exotic plan. They added flyers to all the members. They had small meetings, large meetings. They had all kinds of pleas for money, and at the end of the day, they didn't raise too much. I think the congregation really was not ready for a big city production like that. And it's obvious that we didn't have enough money to, from what he picked up, enough money to build this magnificent temple. So we went back to the architect and said, look, we need something more practical, something we can afford. And what he came up with was this property right here. It was you've seen it from the outside. Many of you remember it from the inside. It had a soaring roof with exposed timber beams, gorgeous. It had the sanctuary up front and a number of other amenities. And that's what we could afford, almost. Before we could proceed with a contract, we realized that there were a number of things that we needed to eliminate, among which was wood paneling for the sanctuary. and also carpet. We couldn't afford carpet, we couldn't afford the paneling, but they proceeded to build the temple. Marcia tells me that she remembers the first bar mitzvah was held on a bare concrete floor with folding chairs. The other way that we saved money was to use the pews from the old temple. This beautiful oak bench over there was one of the pews from the old temple. I think Marcia said it sat for 96 people, something like that. In 1972 or thereabouts, the temple was built and was and the old temple was deconsecrated, and they had a beautiful program. Children and members in teams started from the old temple on Copeland Street, right by the university, and marched with the Torahs all the way down here in phases, and delivered the Torah here to the temple. At that time, after spending all the money for the temple, we were in dire financial straits, and Steve Wynn tells me that in order to save money, they canceled the mowing contract. And a number of the temple members brought their lawnmowers and did the mowing of the lawn. Another thing that we did in this area, we had a Wednesday night bingo game for the community. I remember installing the big bingo panel on the wall over there. We had about a dozen or two members that showed up every Wednesday and handled the kitchen, because we sold drinks, popcorn, we sold tea and so forth. And that continued at least for a year or more, until really we wore out all the members. They just could not continue to be committed to doing that, and the bingo game ended. But the temple earned quite a bit of money from that. In 1995, the gym, or an all-purpose building, was constructed. I was out of town at the time for several years, so I don't know too much about that, but I guess some people here could fill you in at your leisure. And in late 2006, it was obvious that our temple, as beautiful as it was, needed refurbishing. So we hired a consultant to come in and refurbish it and improve the ADA compliance that was necessary. He came with a new concept. The new concept was that the rabbi should not be elevated up above the people and deliver his message like a lecturer. The rabbi should be of the people. So while the original flooring in the sanctuary was on a downsweep, they brought in truckload after truckload of sand and built it up so that it's level. They also, I think, took out essentially one step from what had been a raised bima. And by the way, let me tell you about the bima, about the architecture there. I was on the committee that selected the construction of the ark. And I remember we went through books of how to finish the ark, and we found a company that sold decorative plywood, and we picked that pattern. It looks like a three-dimension fire over the temple. The contractor also found a cabinet maker in Quincy with a steam press, and he was able to take those handles, which were originally horizontal, and press them in the steam press for that beautiful curved reverse curve for the handle there. They don't do that anymore around here.